Hi, we are Group 5, and today we will have chosen the poem "There Is No Frigate Like a Book" by Emily Dickinson. So first of all, who is Emily Dickinson? Emily Dickinson was an American poet born in 1830 in Amherst, Massachusetts. Although she lived a quiet and reclusive life, she wrote nearly 1,800 poems filled with deep emotion, imagination, and original ideas. Her writing style was unique for her time, using unusual punctuation, short lines, and powerful imagery. Today, Dickinson is recognized as one of the greatest American poets, often mentioned alongside Walt Whitman as a major figure in American literature. One of her most memorable poems is "There Is No Frigate Like a Book." In this poem, Dickinson compares a book to a frigate, which is a large and powerful ship. She also compares poetry to swift horses. Through these comparisons, she shows how reading can carry our minds to distant places, just like a ship travels across the sea or a horse races across the land. The poem celebrates the power of literature even without money, travel, or physical movement. A reader can explore new worlds, ideas, and emotions through books. Dickinson suggests that reading is one of the most accessible and enriching journeys a person can experience. In just a few short lines, Dickinson captures a timeless message. Books have the power to transport, inspire, and free the imagination. That is why her poetry continues to resonate with readers around the world today. Thank you.
Okay, so here is the original poem of There Is No Frigate Like a Book by Emily Dickinson, along with its Malay translation. So I will go through the poem line by line. Line 1 of the original poem is There is no frigate like a book, which is translated as Tiada frigate seperti buku. Line 2 reads To take us lands away, and this is translated as Yang menghanyutkan kita ke mana sahaja. So moving on to the third line of the poem. Line 3 of the original poem is Nor any causes like a page, which is translated as Tiada kuda sepantas halaman. Meanwhile, line 4 reads of prancing poetry, and this is translated as Puisi indah yang menari riak. So next is line 5. Line 5 of the original poem is Drift Travels made the poorest take, which is translated as perjalanan ini boleh dinikmati oleh sesiapa sahaja. Meanwhile, line 6 reads without a price of toll, and this is translated as tanpa perlu membayar apa-apa. And finally, for the last two lines of the poem, line 7 of the original poem is How frugal is the chariot, which is translated as betapa jimatnya kuda kereta itu. And the final line, which is line 8, is that bears the human soul, which is translated as menjulang suci jiwa manusia.
Next, I will explain the translation strategies and justifications used in translating the poem There Is No Frigate Like a Book by Emily Dickinson into Malay. In translating this poem, our group focused on preserving the original meaning, tone, imagery, and poetic beauty while ensuring the translation sounds natural and understandable for Malay readers. Since poetry contains figurative language, symbolism, and emotional expressions, we realized that translating poetry is more challenging than translating ordinary text. Because of that, we used several translation strategies such as literal translation, adaptation, semantic translation, modulation, and the sense for sense approach. So for line 1 and 2, we mainly use modulation and the sense for sense approach. The lines are There is no frigate like a book to take us lands away. So for these lines, we applied modulation because it changes the perspective of expression of the original metaphor while still preserving its meaning. The word frigate refers to a large warship, But instead of translating it literally as frigate, we translated it as kapal. This adjustment makes the translation sounds more natural and easier for Malay readers to understand while still maintaining the image of travel and journey created by the poet. Besides that, we also used the sense for sense approach, which focuses on conveying the intended meaning and emotional effect rather than translating word for word. So, for example, the line "to take us lands away" was translated as "membawa kita ke negeri jauh" instead of following the exact sentence structure of the original text. We prioritize the overall message about books, transporting readers through imagination and knowledge. This would help preserve the poetic meaning and emotional impact of the poem in Malay. Secondly, we applied the adaptation strategy for word or phrases that would sound awkward or unfamiliar if translated directly. For example, in line 3 and 4, nor any choruses like a page of prancing poetry, the word choruses refers to fast horses used for travelling. We translated it as kuda to maintain the imagery of movement and speed while making it more natural in Malay. Meanwhile, the phrase prancing poetry was translated as puisi indah yang menari riang. We chose this phrase because a direct translation of prancing would sound unnatural and less poetic in Malay. Therefore, we adapted the expressions to preserve the lively, graceful, and energetic feeling intended by the poet. So, besides that, we also use semantic translation, which focuses on conveying the emotional meaning and artistic beauty of the poem rather than translating every word exactly. For example, the line "How frugal is the chariot" was translated as "Betapa sederhana kereta kencana itu." The phrase "kereta kencana" was chosen because it sounds more elegant and poetic compared to direct translation. This helps to maintain the classical tone and refined style of Dickinson's writing. In addition, our group paid close attention to preserving the poem's literary elements such as metaphor, imagery, symbolism, and tone. Dickinson compares books to ships and poetry to fast horses to show how literature can transport the human imagination beyond physical boundaries. These metaphors are important because they represent freedom, imagination, and the power of literature. Therefore, our translation aimed to keep these imaginative images so Malay readers could experience the same emotional and creative impact as readers of the original poem. We also tried to maintain the poem's calm, inspirational, and admiring tone throughout the translation. Even though some words were changed or adapted, we ensured that the overall message and emotional atmosphere remained faithful to the original text. Overall, our translation strategy balanced accuracy with creativity. We learned that translating poetry is not only about changing words from one language to another, but also about understanding literary meaning, cultural context, and also emotional expressions.
Now, I will discuss the themes of the poem "There is no frigate like a book" by Emily Dickinson. So the central theme of this poem is the transformative power of literature. Throughout the poem, Emily Dickinson presents books as powerful vehicles that can transport readers to distant places, new experiences, and different ways of thinking. She compares a book to a frigate, which is a large ship, and a page of poetry to horses or fast horses. These comparisons emphasize the ability of literature to take readers on journey beyond the limitation of physical reality. Another important theme is the accessibility of knowledge and imagination. Dickinson suggests that the journey offered by books is available to everyone, regardless of their social status or economic status. This idea is especially evident in the lines, "These travels may the poorest take without oppress of toil." Here, the poet highlights that even the poorest individuals can experience the richness of literature without needing money or resources. Unlike physical travel, reading is an opportunity that is open to all. The poem also explores the theme of freedom. Through books, readers are free to travel across time, places, and cultures without leaving their homes. Literature allows individuals to escape the boundaries of their everyday lives and explore endless possibilities through imagination. This freedom is portrayed as both empowering and enriching. In addition, Emily Dickinson celebrates the value of education and intellectual growth. The poem suggests that books are more than just sources of entertainment. They are tools that expand knowledge, encourage curiosity, and nurture the human mind. By reading, people can gain new perspectives and develop a deeper understanding of the world around them. Finally, the poem conveys a sense of wonder and appreciation for literature. Emily Dickinson admires the remarkable ability of books to carry the human soul, allowing readers to experience journeys that are both personal and transformative. Through her use of vivid metaphors and imagery, she presents literature as one of the most valuable and accessible treasures available to humanity. Overall, the poem emphasizes the power of books to inspire imagination, promote learning, provide freedom, and connect people to experiences beyond their immediate reality. It celebrates literature as a universal gift that enriches the human soul, regardless of wealth, background, or circumstance.
So, for my individual reflections, I have found that there is a difference between translating a poem to translating an article, where translating an article is slightly more easier than translating a poem, because with the poem you have to take advice on the meaning and also the cultural references that happens in the poem. So during this time when I translated the poem, I have found a slightly difficulty in translating the said poem, which is there is no frigate like a book by Emily Dickinson, line 1 and line 2. But I tackled this difficulty by using modulation um, and also sense for sense approach as my strategy. I have found that in modulation, while I changed a slight meaning of the words that were used by Emily Dickinson, I have found that it can also preserve the overall meaning of the lines itself, while sense for sense approach helps in keeping the metaphors intact, to helps in regulating the original meaning of the poem itself. So I have reflect on myself and I found that these two strategies work the best for me in order for me to translate the poems that we have chosen. So I guess that's all from me. Thank you.
Through this collaborative translation project, I learned that understanding literary elements such as metaphor, symbolism, imagery, tone, and rhythm is very important in producing a good poetry translation. At first, I thought translation was mainly about changing words from English to into Malay, but after working on this poem, I realized that poetry translation requires deeper interpretation and creativity. While translating lines 3 and 4, I had to carefully understand the meaning behind phrases like choruses and prancing poetry. These expressions are figurative and symbolic, so translating them literally would make the poem sound awkward and lose its poetry. And because of that, I learned the importance of adaptation and semantic translation in preserving both meaning and emotional effect. I also realized that literary skills are extremely important for translators, especially when dealing with figurative or poetic text. A translator needs to understand hidden meanings, imagery, and emotions in order to recreate the same experience for readers in another language. Without literary understanding, the translation may become too direct and lose the beauty and impact of the original poem. Besides that, working collaboratively with my group member helped me see different interpretations and ideas. Through discussion and peer feedback, I improved my understanding of poem and learned how different translation choices can affect tone and meaning. This experience has taught me that translation is not only a language activity but also a creative and analytical process. Overall, this project helped me improve my translation skills, literary analysis skills, and teamwork skills. It also made me appreciate the complexity and beauty of poetry translation even more.
Through this poetry translation task, I learned that understanding literary elements is very important for producing an accurate and meaningful translation. While translating the poem, I realized that I could not simply translate the words directly because many of them carried deeper meanings through metaphor, symbolism, and imagery. For example, the word traverse in the poem does not only refer to a physical journey, it symbolizes an imaginative journey through reading. Understanding this metaphor helped me choose a translation that reflected the poet's intended meaning rather than just the literal definition of the word. Similarly, recognizing the symbolism behind words such as tall allowed me to preserve the poem's message about the accessibility of books and knowledge. So this experience taught me that literary skills are essential for translators, especially when dealing with figurative or poetic texts. A translator must be able to identify literary devices, understand the tone and emotions of the poem, and convey those elements effectively in the target language. Without these skills, important meanings and artistic qualities of the original text may be lost. I also learned a lot from my group members during the discussion and peer review process. By listening to different interpretations and translation suggestions, I gained new perspectives on the poem and developed a deeper appreciation for the collaborative nature of translation. Overall, this task helped me improve both of my translation skills and my understanding of literary analysis.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. So today I would like to share my individual reflection on translating this entire poem. So basically, translating this poem taught me that poetry isn't about swapping words, it's about transferring an emotional landscape. Emily Dickinson captures a massive philosophical idea in entire poem, and my goal was to preserve that depth in Malay. So my understanding of literary elements directly shaped the quality of the translation. To capture the quiet tone and the grand metaphor of the carrot carrying the human soul, a literal translation simply wouldn't work. Translating frugal as jimat felt too commercial, so I chose bersahaja to maintain a dignified poetic way. I also kept the Malay phrasing short to match the original impactful rhythm. So this proves that literary skills are vital for a translator. Without them, figurative text gets flattened and the poetry dies. So basically, we cannot just use a dictionary, but we need the literary insight to decode the author's intent and recreate the same magic in a new language. So my conclusion is, ultimately language is just the vehicle, but literary insight is what truly preserves the soul of a text. Thank you.